Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode number 53, number of Bill Romanowski. I don't know if you remember Bill Romanowski.
Of course I do.
Do you? I don't know if he was before your time. He was a real piece of work.
Absolutely.
Anyway, episode number 53 of the third season of the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal. We are paving the way. We are your lead blocker to fantasy glory, excellence, trophies, parades, moral superiority, all those things. We are paving the way for that. I'm your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself. We almost got week 12 in the books, Wolf. I mean, the fantasy regular season is almost over.
And for some unfortunate souls like myself, it is over in some leagues. I got fucking buried. Oh, my joke ragtag bunch of misfit loser asses couldn't pull it out for me, and that's understandable. I mean, even no matter what, the guy I faced put up like 150 or some joke. He's the number one seed in the league, so I get that. And without Mahomes, without Cooks, with Melvin Gordon hurt in the first half, I mean, it was just one of those things. The Humphreys and Winston stack, I know we talked about that one, came through, made me have a little bit of false hope. Nothing like false hope, right? But ultimately, my pathetic bunch, Sutton 1.9, Scantling's 0.3. Ugh, just embarrassing lineup, just an embarrassing team. It's almost kind of just like nice to have the horse shot in the head with this one. And I have a couple other great teams I can now focus on, but I shouldn't say that. It's fucking devastating. I was depressed all night. I was screaming fucking obscenities about Jordan Howard into the night, howling away. I can't fucking go talk about him or I'll just go throw up into the toilet. How about you, though? How was your weekend?
Well, I mean, I think I'm going to go 1-3 for my teams, but the one that I give a shit about is the one that I'm going to win.
Nice.
I lost the RSJ league. I told you I was going to. I had all my best players on bye, and I'm playing Keegs, unfortunately, because it seems like even at marginally full strength, I probably would have beat him. I'm actually not out of it. If Lamar Miller really goes off, I could still win, but I'm not counting on that. How many do you need from
Vanilla himself?
I'm down 16. He has Deion Lewis. I have Lamar Miller and the Tennessee kicker. So it's not impossible. It's not impossible, but I don't think I'm going to win. But anyway, hopefully I'll see Keegs a third time in the playoffs. But anyway, I won in the league I care a lot about. My guys came to play. It's the first time I've been full strength in like 5 weeks. And I brought the Nick Chubb, Sony Michel backfield to the table. And I got DeAndre Hopkins going tonight. I had Phillip Rivers, who had one incomplete pass the whole time. Gronk finally caught a touchdown, which was nice. Emmanuel Sanders showed up for me. So I had a pretty good day. I won. It's all about points now. I'm unfortunately playing a team next week with the playoffs on the line, and he's 11-1.
Oh, so, baby. You're going to have to earn your way in. That's always the best, though. If you beat his ass, you're going with the momentum. You kind of, you hang your hats on that. You have some pride about beating that team.
Yeah, I have pride about it, and I think that when my team's full strength, I genuinely believe I'm the best team in the league, but we'll see what happens. I could still go if I lose to him, but I'll need help. Right? If I win, I'm the 3 seed, and if I lose, I could be anywhere from the 3 to 7. So we'll see what happens. All right, we got some big games. Obviously, we got the Texans and the Titans tonight, Monday night. But we're going to recap some of the week. We're going to tell you some of the risers, some of the fallers, some guys you should be taking your last-ditch penny stock, gamble on. And then we are going to get into it at the very, very end. We're going to talk about some guys that we think that maybe you might be interested in because it is, of course, cuffing season. And, we would be remiss if we did not address cuffing season here as we near the end of week 12. Wolf, is it cuffing season for you, like in real life?
What do you mean? My visions only dream about 240-pound big burly running backs that I can cuddle up to during this time of the year. But it is
240-pound running backs who don't play.
No, I know.
I'm only interested in the guys on the bench.
Exactly. That's what the cuffing season's all about. But I mean, granted, it is that time of the year to rewatch Game of Thrones. The final season's about to come on, so real life cuffing season full in effect. Got definitely some an interesting lead for cuffing season for sure. Things have been going really well, shockingly for the Wolf. Usually that's not the case. So here he goes. He hasn't fucked it up during fantasy football season of all the times in the world.
It's the time to fuck it up, too.
And
that's when you're vulnerable.
That is when I am by far the most vulnerable until they realize fantasy football never ends, and that's when they usually run. They get it during football season.
Right, for you, it ends less than most. I mean, like once we hit February, you're like, well, got to pump out my big board for 2019.
The goal is actually to have New Year's Day, a relaunch. I haven't even gone over this with you yet, but hoping to relaunch the brand new website that's fully in the works right now. Day of January 1st, 2019, the new year hits with brand new 2019 rankings, some stock profiles, everything. That's the goal. We'll see. We've got a month to execute.
So anybody that's interested in cuffing with the Wolf this winter, just be aware that you're not going to get like all of his attention or even most of it or even like 30% of it.
240-pound running backs deserve all the attention. What can I say?
Right. Spencer Ware, I'm looking at you. Anyway, podcast. The podcast today, we're going to address some of the risers first, and some of them are pretty obvious. Christian McCaffrey,
Yes.
I mean, 17 rushes, 125 yards. I mean, that's a gaudy stat line in itself. Also had a touchdown, and then, of course, he hauled in, 11 out of 11 targets for 112 and another score. Are you kidding me? Like, that is a ridiculous stat line. I mean, the Panthers lost the Seahawks, so real-life football was a game with huge implications. But let's talk fantasy. I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to find a more impressive PPR stat line than that.
In fact, it was the highest fantasy total of the year, regardless of scoring.
Really?
Unbelievable performance. Yep, it was the highest scoring fantasy total by any position. This was his hardest remaining matchup on the schedule. So just keep that in mind. The guy's averaging the sixth most touches per game, 20.5, and now gets Tampa Bay, Cleveland, New Orleans, and Atlanta over his next four. Just all very generous to passing games, and most of them very generous to running games. New Orleans stops the run decently, but still, he's going to catch 1 million balls against the Saints as well. So you got to feel great about what this guy is doing, and this is one of those times where, preseason, you never want to go fully aboard and jump all in. But this was one where we had him in our guide as the overpriced one in our first guide before August hit. Afterwards, we said, this is the one guy we're taking a 180 on. We've seen the usage. Yeah. He's been in on 90% of the snaps, and it's really panned out. This guy has fully lived up to all the hype that the preseason was kind of generating for him. Even after week 1 and 2, I remember, we both talked about, are you worried about McCaffrey's low output so far? And I remember seeing, nope, he's in on 90% of the snaps. He hasn't gotten in the end zone, but we saw that he hadn't given up any goal line looks to C.J. Anderson until this game. He fumbled and they're giving him a little slap on the wrist. Don't sell him. Buy low if you can, and if you took that advice, then it's paying off for you in gold this week. What an unbelievable performance from an unbelievable player. Moves into my top 3 overall on the rest of season big board. I can't even know if maybe it's number 2 considering the schedule. Todd Gurley, really the only guy I can confidently say I'd rather have over McCaffrey, and I'm not even sure I'm that confident in that statement. So if you want to check that out, rotostreetjournal.com/bigboardros. If you want to see those rankings where they lean now. The top 5, though, I know we have a couple guys to cover, but there's like a top 5, and sorting them out today took me about like an hour just for the first 5, and I was like, this is going to take me forever to do this big board. Can you name the top 5 you think in my big board, Nat?
For the rest of the season?
Rest of season.
You taking strength of schedule and stuff into account, I guess?
I do, but I mean, some of these guys are just it's clear 5 workhorses.
So Gurley, McCaffrey, clearly. I'm going to say probably Kamara.
Ooh, number 6, actually. Number 6.
All right, I'm just going off the top here. Let me think.
No, it's tough. It's tough. I got you.
No, but I mean, I didn't feel great about that one.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I mean, if you're going rest of the season strength of schedule, maybe David Johnson.
He's up there with the sitting schedule, but it's not Nick Chubb. He's right on the verge, too. So those guys were just teetering on there, but you got Saquon Barkley and there, Kareem Hunt.
Adam Thielen?
No, seriously, the way that guy is absolutely balled out, deserves it. But Zeke Elliott as well, the way he's really turned the season around. Saquon and Zeke, the only ones a little bit question marks in the overall offense. But
I might rather have Kamara and whoever I said at 7, and David Johnson. I'd even rather have Nick Chubb than Zeke or what's his face too. I see why that took you a while.
And it goes, and then you see Mike Tom. I mean, then you got the whole target hog situation, right? Julio balling out, and Mike Tom. It just making this big board, just the top 20 was.
Don't you kind of want to just do the big board, the 2019 big board now? I'm kind of excited.
I know. I can't wait to do it. I've already started chipping away a little bit at it. It's the best. I'm already excited to 2019, especially now that the Fez League is buried. On to the next season, baby.
Oh God!
No, not at all. We have to win your titles, and I have some titles to win too. That was sarcastic.
I'm hoping that I can. Man,
we're gonna get you back to back as well. We have to.
That would be huge. I would lord that over my friends from home forever.
Incredible.
All
and
right,
Seamus going for the 3-peat, by the way. He's second place.
You can put it in the books for Seamus.
Oh man, love it. Nothing better.
He's done. We got to get him on the show before the end of the season. Anyway,
it's been too long.
Amari Cooper. Now, I was going against Amari Cooper, who used to be on my team, and I traded him because I was desperate. Yeah, I mean, I got Trey Burton for him, so it was all good. And
what a steal!
Oh my God! I mean, I had to do it, but now I just look at it and I just want to punch myself in the face. Anyway, so I was on the couch, and Amari Cooper hadn't done anything. And I was feeling pretty good about it. The guy I was playing against had 3 guys on Thanksgiving going, and I didn't have anybody. And I kind of dozed off because I was drinking early in the day because, I'm disgusting. And I kind of fell asleep. Didn't pass out really, but just dozed off on the couch. Amari Cooper had 1 point when I went to sleep. And when I woke up, he had 37. About like half an hour later, and I was
is awful. Waking up into a real life nightmare, like from a nice deep sleep to a nightmare.
Not that different than like waking up to like a home invasion with someone like with a gun in my face or something. You know what I mean?
You essentially did just get battered and taken in your sleep.
Well, it was like it was similar to like Des Bryant and Frank Gore like having their way with me in the closet.
To clench your cheeks a little bit,
Not a little bit. I mean, what a way to wake up. Amari Cooper, 8 or 9 targets for $180 and 2 touchdowns on Thanksgiving, and the Cowboys 31-23 Week 12 win over the hapless Washington professional football team. First of all, Washington done. Yeah. Second of all, Amari Cooper, talent or not, and we agree he is a talent. I mean, he's been obviously underused. The Raiders are just such flaming bags of garbage right now. The Cowboys have so intentionally used this guy and peppered him with targets. It's almost like I don't know how he could not be successful.
Absolutely. I mean, you nailed the head.
And I would put him in the top 10 for receivers right now.
He's right up there. He's up to 37 overall on my big board. I forget exactly what that means wide receiver wise. I think he falls right inside the top, maybe number 15 on the big board. There's just when you
not actually having a list.
Right. Once you go down the list, you realize how many actual ridiculous target hogs there are. But Cooper's clearly not far off from them. In fact, could rival any of them down the stretch because of one, the volume, like you just mentioned, 9 targets, caught 8 of them. As you said, and he hasn't really seen below 9, 10. He's hovering right around that double-digit target total every single week as a Cowboy. Now has 22, 349, and 3 TDs in those 4 games so far with the Cowboys. 1 dud, but other than that, he's been a very consistent high-end wide receiver 2, if not an explosive wide receiver 1 come Thanksgiving Day. And then you look at the rest of the season schedule, the number 2 easiest strength of schedule moving forward, an absolute cakewalk in the playoffs. I mean, it's just a joke what this guy is going to have going forward the rest of the season. So you got to feel good in terms of just the talent. It has always been there, as you were alluding to. Just didn't seem to have the confidence or the full volume to exploit that. But they're using him so well, that pristine route running, getting him into those run after the catch situations, that 90-yard score. You just saw the speed is 100% full there, just outrunning everybody on the defense. They're setting up to perfection. As we mentioned with Scott Linehan, he's always preferred just peppering one target when he has him, and that kind of prediction has fully come out to play here with Amari Cooper. Yes, as you said, a low-end wide receiver 1. There still feels like there's that risk he could disappear on you at any minute because it's Amari Cooper, but with Dallas, the volume has been so steady that I don't think he does. The schedule is so easy that I don't think he does. This is Cooper here to stay. He's a beast, and you got to enjoy having him the rest of the year.
2 things. First of all, I'm so glad I was asleep during that 90-yard pass. I mean, like, I would have gone ape shit. Second of all, I mean, I've been burned by Amari Cooper as much as anybody over the past couple years. I mean, I've had some successes with him too, but I got to say, even though I was pretty much completely out on him, I don't really see him disappearing just because they're so intentional about throwing him the ball. I think he's still going to get his catches, even if he's not getting huge yardage. And we've seen now he can get huge yardage. I mean, look, nobody's bulletproof. Maybe like DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know. But like this guy is going to get looks. So I think he's a pretty safe bet to score you solid, like you said, low-end wide receiver 1 at minimum points the rest of the way in. Josh Adams, our third riser, rushed 22 times for 84 yards and 1 touchdown, and the Eagles 25-22 Week 12 win over the Giants. Man, look what the Eagles are reduced to. Hey, we beat the Giants by 3. We came back. We had a guy rush for 80 yards.
Right, so pathetic, so sad. This is just a complete shell-shock team. But, man, I'm happy this one ended up panning out because pregame, right on our fantasy tailgate show Sunday mornings, we talked about how Rappaport tweeted the plan was to feature Josh Adams. And through halftime, he only had 4 carries. Had a shoulder thing going on. And it was like, damn, we recommended this guy to a bunch of people. This is going to be horrible. And
we always hear about it, too.
Oh, yeah, it deservedly so. I love it. Bring it on, rotostreetjournal.com/wineline. Always hit us up if we blew it for you. But then he goes, it's got to be, I'm going to stat check this one again, but I think this might be the highest carry total any running back has ever seen under Doug Peterson, just a lone running back. 22 carries is true featured back work for a guy, and he didn't do a humongous ton of damage, 84 on a TD, but still a nice beefy stat line. The volume's what you really like to see because this guy, Peterson, has always been such a heavy committee guy, and 22 is obviously featured back work. He also, Adams, had a 52-yard touchdown run called back, so this could have been an absolute monster-style game, 162 TD style game. Wasn't that far off for him. So moving forward, he does have the toughest strength of schedule, but if he's getting this type of volume, 15 to 20 carries, he's got a great line in front of him. He's definitely a bet for 80 to 100 yards and a TD each and every week, an instant RB2, outsnapping Corey Clement 78 to 38 over these last 2 weeks. He is the clear-cut guy here, and there's no question anymore.
All right, let's go to fallers. And the first guy we're going to talk about, I'm just going to take a deep breath before we talk about him. Because this guy has fucked me like all over the place this season.
Yep, wherever he wants to, right?
I felt so confident in these. I felt I was so smug. I got him in like 3 out of my 4 leagues, and I was like tucking him away. And I mean, I turned down a trade straight up, I think, in week 2 for a straight up Juju Smith-Schuster for him. I turned it down. Right. I mean, that would have been nice, right?
Right.
Yeah. Juju's done all right. Jarvis Landry.
Oh.
3 out of 5 targets for 30 yards in Sunday's week 12 win against the Bengals. And it's worth noting that the Browns put up 35 points in that game. So it's not like this was a 9-6 game or something like that. And one thing you could always count on Landry for, which, by the way, does not always result in fantasy points, is the guy gets the fucking targeted like crazy. Mm-hmm. He was targeted 5 times in this game. Right. Every time I looked up, Antonio Callaway or whatever is catching like a 19-yard pass. What the hell is going on here? Like, do I even start this guy anymore? I mean, it's not, my options are limited. So, I mean, maybe I have to. I'm just so irritated about this. This is like ruined my season in 1 or 2 leagues, and in my hometown league, if he was doing what he was supposed to, I'd be a lock for the playoffs.
I know, yeah. It's absolutely painful. You mentioned Juju in his breath, and that's a guy that a lot of us passed up on because we wanted Jarvis Landry.
To be fair, we liked Juju also.
And we did. We loved Juju.
I thought about that deal. I really did consider it. I was just like, you know what? I'm all in on Jarvis.
Oh, yeah. We were 10 spots higher on the expert rankings on Juju going into the year, but we were also 15, 20 higher on Landry, and that's been one of our biggest misses, and it's not even close, so I thought we had to put this one on there. My apologies to anybody that reached on Landry with if you took our advice on him, because he has been absolutely abysmal, pathetic, useless, whatever words you want to use here. I don't understand it. I thought the route tree was going to be more diverse. I thought with a better quarterback in Baker Mayfield, he was going to light it up, and none of that has happened. Even Freddie Kitchens, who's chefed up some great offense over these last few weeks, none of it has gone to Jarvis Landry. Since Baker Mayfield took over, Landry's been under 50 yards in 6 of 8 games. He's had just 10 catches over the 3 games that Freddie Kitchen has been the offensive coordinator. That's 102 yards over those 3 games, so almost 33 yards. I mean, pathetic outputs for Jarvis Landry, and every single week we find another reason to love him. The schedule is looking prime. The Bengals, literally the easiest matchup he could possibly ask for, and the offense clearly took advantage of it, but he was not a part for it. As you mentioned, that was the most concerning part, and you mentioned it. There's no reason to keep starting this guy. I'd rather have, let's say, Josh Reynolds from the Rams, or maybe Calvin Ridley from the Falcons. There's just so many guys I would rather play each week, because at this point, there's just no upside to starting Jarvis Landry, only downside. If he couldn't take advantage of this one, then there's no hope here.
Another faller, Carson Wentz, Alshon Jeffery, the Eagles' passing attack in general, with the exception of Zach Ertz. God, what is there more to say about the Eagles?
Just hapless.
They're a bad football team. I mean, it's easy to forget that they beat the Patriots, like a redheaded stepchild in the Super Bowl last year, because they're so shitty.
Yeah.
Like, this is such a shitty football team.
Right. Well, fuck you, one, for having to always work that in every single time you possibly can.
Well, every time we bring up how bad the Eagles are, where's the first place you go? Even you think, wow, that's the freaking defending Super Bowl champions right there,
right? And
they suck.
It's pathetic. And I mean, it's an interesting debate here. It's like, is it personnel? Is it coaching? This goes to show the coaching
team's not that different. Their team's not really that different.
It really isn't. I mean, losing Frank Reich and what's the friggin' dude that went to the Vikings? He's their offensive coordinator. What's that?
Sure.
Not Shermer. No, he was the Vikings offensive coordinator. Now he's with the Giants. Who's the Eagles?
Right.
That's going to fucking piss me off. The quarterback coach for the Eagles.
DeFilippo?
Yes. John DeFilippo, or however you pronounce it. They lost both those guys, and we did mention that they could be concerned that the Eagles take a step back on offense for losing these really bright game plan schemers and awesome just overall offensive coaches. And damn, it really has played in, whether it's the coaching or loss of talent. It doesn't matter at this point. They've clearly have taken multiple steps back as an entire offensive unit. Wentz just doesn't look all that healthy. 236 on a TD. Pathetic game from him. Alshon, 39 yards, has now been under 48 yards in 4 straight games after coming out with a vengeance and looking like a true number one target hog with like back-to-back 20-point fantasy days, which he had only had 2 of them the year before. Looked like he was ready to roll and kind of just dominating that number one target hog role. They trade for Golden Tate, add more weaponry, but it's done nothing for this offense overall. In fact, they only look worse each week you watch them. It's been absolutely pathetic. I really do think a result of I mean, you look what the Colts are doing with Andrew Luck on pace to now set the record for 3 touchdowns in a row, week in and week out. One of the biggest risers on my big board. Nonetheless, the strength of schedule means nothing for Andrew Luck at this point. We know we said we'd sell high. That was wrong. He's blowing it up because Frank Reich actually knows what he's doing. A couple boneheaded early decisions in the year.
Yeah, I wrote him off after that.
You really decision. Did. You were ripping that guy.
It's still the dumbest thing I've seen any coach do this year, and I saw Hugh Jackson coach for like 6 or 7 games, so that's saying something. But I mean, they're on fire.
They're on fire.
I picked up their defense, and I've been running them in I think 3 of my 4 leagues. Yeah. Dropped the fucking shitty Ravens and have replaced them with the Colts.
Yeah.
Next guy up.
Overall, just completely down for the unit. And I do think it's somewhat coaching at minimum. Maybe all of it's coaching at this point.
I agree with you. I also just think, I saw Carson Wentz play all last year, and I'm aware he's not the guy that actually beat the Patriots. That was like an out-of-body experience that Nick Foles had for a couple weeks. But I remember, you remember Wentz last year? It was like he would convert on like 3rd and 8 like all the time.
It was automatic.
And I was very impressed by it, and I was like, this guy's great. But I also, in the back of my head, was like, there's got to be some randomness to this. There's got to be some degree of like, you can't sustain that exactly. Right. Like no one can just do that again, like all the time. And it seems like they're not having anywhere near the success on that they did last year. And that shouldn't really even come as that big a surprise. That seemed like a gamble that they just continually won last year again and again. And I guess they're not this year. And I guess we'll see him in 2019.
And that's what's happening with Andrew Luck nowadays. He's converting literally everything. The guy can't miss, and he's thrown to complete garbage. So I really do think Frank Reich is a huge part of this loss. And it's going to show.
I agree. I stand by Frank Reich being an idiot, and I think he's a great coach, and he's proved it. All right, third guy, Adrian Peterson. What the hell are you doing, man?
Oh.
Like, if you get convicted of DWI, you don't then go to like the newspaper and be like, yeah, I generally drink like a bottle of bourbon before I get in the car. I still do it. Like, what's this guy doing? He lost a year of his career for beating the crap out of his kids, and he just volunteers the information. Yeah, I still beat him with a belt. Yeah, of course. I mean, and if you do, okay, like I'm not for it. I don't support it. But you would think he'd at least have the common sense to not just like tell the media. Right. What the hell is this guy doing? That's not even what this Fallers is about. But I'm just tacking this on to like that because this ain't helping him.
Yeah.
Adrian Peterson rushing 12 times. I mean, don't you think that was such a dumb thing to do?
Stupid real life, horrible fantasy. I mean, everything's going downhill for Adrian Peterson. I
feel like if Josh Gordon just went to the media right now and he'd be like, you should see the freaking brick of weed I have under my bed right now. It's crazy. Like, it's nuts how much weed I have.
I know, right?
Adrian Peterson rushed 12 times for 35 yards in the Redskins' Week 12 loss to the Cowboys, adding 2 catches for 9 additional yards. So a garbage day.
Yep. Completely garbage, and it's gonna. I think this is just gonna continue. We said sell high, and this was well before Alex Smith got hurt, but he was our number one at the trade deadline, like sell high running back. And it's panning out for us because, one, Adrian Peterson is old and the mileage is starting to catch up to him for sure. He doesn't look as explosive. He's kind of doing way too much dancing behind the line and getting caught now, whereas before he's still able to outrun some people, but that's all gone. He seems sapped of any explosiveness, but even worse, the offensive line is just decimated. I don't even know if they have a single starter from the beginning of the year, and they were a mauling unit, and it was fantastic for him. They were paving massive holes, and he was ripping through them. But at this point, that's no longer there for him, and the overall offense as a whole is just abysmal. You got, Colt McCoy leading the charge, which is just never going to get you anywhere. And in games where they trail, Peterson averages less than 12 touches a game and less than 50 yards a game, and we saw that on Thanksgiving Day. He was our Wade below running back because of the prediction that they were going to be down and in catch-up mode, and that's not Adrian Peterson's game flow. And with a tough schedule moving forward and games where they should probably be down when you got Colt McCoy leading your offense, I think it's just straight downhill for Adrian Peterson. So hopefully you sold high while you could have, because at this point his value's at rock bottom, and I don't see it getting up much time soon.
Yeah, I actually looked into moving him in a league I had, and I actually heard on another guy on another podcast doing the same thing. And there weren't a ton of takers out there looking for him.
No, I think it was kind of the obvious.
I think everybody.
We're not that bold on it.
I don't know about him. Anyway, injuries, significant injury in the Chargers game last night. Melvin Gordon, and you have to question Anthony Lynn, the coach of the Chargers, leaving the guy in. He pulls Phillip Rivers and puts in Geno Smith, I think, actually. We got a Geno Smith sighting, which was nice. But left in Melvin Gordon, at least for a little while. And the guy suffers an MCL injury against the Cardinals. That ain't good.
No, not at all. And it came on like some stupid reverse play call that was just absolutely awful. Grade 2 MCL sprain is the latest that just came out with from Ian Rappaport today. So he's going to miss most likely a couple weeks, they say. And I imagine that means at probably the majority of the rest of the fantasy season, if not all of it. That he should be back by the end of the regular season if all goes well, said the report. But even then, what does that mean? Week 17 to kind of get him ready for the playoffs. At that point, the damage is done. So hopefully you owned Austin Eckler, which is just one, you pour one out for Melvin Gordon. What an absolute monster season this guy was having. Just the more I watched,
he would have been your top 5, I'm assuming.
Oh, 100% would have been locked in there. Was number 2 as early as last week before this injury happened. So it's very unfortunate. Going into next year, of course, he's going to be in your top 6 overall. The guy's an absolute monster and a great overall offense. And I'm just watched him more as an owner this year than I ever have in the past. I was so impressed with the way he just broke yards after contact. And he's just a much better running back than I gave him credit for. It wasn't just the setup. He's a great player. So it's unfortunate. So what do you make of it in his aftermath? Well, one, Austin Eckler. Hopefully you had him handcuffed because Eckler looked like a beast in his absence, racked up 21 fantasy points, has always been a monster in the passing game, saw 11 targets and was a beast with them. So you can expect Eckler to see a nice 15 or so targets moving forward and an excellent play. High-end RB2 rises all the way to 39 overall, running back 18, right in that tier with James White, Mark Ingram. I consider Eckler right up there as the low-end RB1, high-end RB2 status. But the other guy you got to note is Justin Jackson, completely unknown at this point, but now becomes easily one of the most priority ads here. In only 7 carries, ripped up 57 yards, 8.1 yards per carry, and could definitely see some of that big back work. Lots of goal line touches, and they've got the 3rd easiest rest of season and playoff schedule for running backs. So love Eckler, and I think Justin Jackson really carries some huge stretch run upside because they definitely seemed hesitant to give Eckler that full workload in the one game Gordon missed this year. I can see Jackson getting a nice 15 carries or so and being a beast with it down the stretch here.
I like Eckler. I'm not quite sure I'd put him quite up with James White and Ingram. I would put him a little below that, but I hear what you're saying.
Right, I mean, he's in the same tier. Not the. I have him below both of those guys, but just below them.
Not far below. I agree. Jack the Beanstalk Doyle. Speaking of just Andrew Luck's targets, I mean, it seems to be able to hit everybody. I mean, the Beanstalk's been chopped down for the rest of the year, I believe. The Athletic Stephen Holder reporting Jack Doyle is expected to be replaced on the dreaded IR with a quote-unquote unspecified injury. So it's unclear whether it's like a beanstalk injury or some other football-related injury. Anyway, it was suffered in Sunday's Week 12 win over the Dolphins, possibly while he was doiling somebody. Jack the Beanstalk Doyle, fantasy implications there?
Oh, absolutely huge with Eric Ebron moving forward, who's obviously one of the best red zone threats in the league, tied with Tyreek Hill with 11 touchdowns on the season. Just That's unbelievable what this guy, isn't that ridiculous? Just insane what this guy has been putting up on the year on very limited snaps. That's, playing 30% of the snaps, seeing only 3 to 4 targets a game. It's still racking up touchdown after touchdown. But when Doyle was out, Ebron was an absolute monster, legitimately a top 2 tight end, week in and week out. He goes from now being a roughly 20 to 40% snap guy and seeing 3.7 targets per game when Doyle was in there to now seeing 80 to 100% of the snaps when Doyle was out to seeing 10.0 targets per game when Doyle was inactive. So that insane volume bump means only better things for Eric Ebron, who the only risk with him was the inconsistency. He could disappear completely when you're playing that low of snaps and seeing that low of targets. Now he's going to have a steady bevy of both. And combine that with the insane red zone usage and red zone production, he moves up to tight end 4 for the rest of the season in my big board, maybe even tight end 3, considering how shaky Mullins has been lately with George Kittle. I might consider moving Ebron even above him. There's very few tight ends other than Kelsey and Ertz that I could confidently say I'd rather have than Eric Ebron moving forward. Unbelievable value boost for him, and I just missed the Beanstalk, one of my favorite all-time players for sure.
I miss him already. Marlon Mack. I mean, injury, nothing new to this guy. He was forced from Sunday's game against the Dolphins with a concussion. He did not return. That, of course, opens the door for Jordan Wilkins and Nyheim Hines, former Roto Street Journal darling. What do you think about the Colts backfield?
It's, again, a sloppy mess because it's been so committee-ridden. When Mack is out, it's going to definitely be a timeshare. But Wilkins has looked pretty explosive on his limited usage. Hines, when Mack was out, had plenty of double-digit fantasy efforts, tons of receiving usage, and now with Doyle removed, even more intermediate targets available. So Hines definitely the first one I'd look to. We've seen him get it done, been more consistent, but Wilkins will be that next man up at the goal line, and he's rumbled at the stripe, and the minimal chances he's gotten in the preseason looked good there. In the regular season did all right there so far too. So 4% owned. Maybe Mac's going to be back anyways, so it's not like it's lock a month, blow all your money, get these guys immediately. But definitely Hines at minimum should be much more owned than 22%. And Wilkins, at least for Mac owners, has to be handcuffed with some decent TD upside. The way the Colts offense moves, you got to feel decent about having their main ball carrier, whether it's Wilkins, Mac, or whoever it might be. But Hines, again, the first guy I would look to here.
All right, let's talk penny stocks. Adam Humphries, 20. We're gonna hit these pretty quickly. We got a few to hit, but let's at least give them each a little look.
Nice 30 seconds.
Adam Humphries, 22% owned, and it's not like this is the first time we've talked about this guy. The Wolf was talking about him a week ago. I was mocking him for the Winston Humphries stack. The Winston Humphries stack was the real deal. Wolf knows what he's talking about. He's 22% owned right now. Talk to me about him.
And fresh off a 6 of 6 target day, hauls in all of them for 54 yards and a TD, and has just always been Winston's boy. He might still struggle because there's so many receiving options there, but it's Winston just historically the numbers. a 76 passer rating when targeting outside receivers as compared to over 90 when targeting the slot and 120 when targeting tight ends. He loves to throw over the middle, those short intermediate gains. And Humphries just looks very explosive after the catch. I didn't think I'd ever say something of that nature, but I've watched obviously every single move of his when starting him and Winston this week. And I was very impressed with how shifty he is and how quickly he knifes through the defense with the ball in his hands. So big fan of Adam Humphries moving forward. I think he could be a great wide receiver 3 down the stretch as long as Winston's under center.
Another guy you talked about before, David Moore, only 10% owned still, hauled in 4 out of 5 for 103 and a touchdown in the Seahawks Week 12 win over the Panthers. Not to be confused with DJ Moore, who's on the other side blowing up. But I remember you recommended both of these guys.
Yeah, and DJ Moore, moving forward, a fantastic option. Now that we've seen it back-to-back weeks, the easiest strength of schedule of any receiver. So DJ Moore I like much more than David Moore, but you have a better shot at owning David Moore, who's only 10% owned right now. Had that big game. You just rifled off those stats. We've talked a lot about how we buy into Russell Wilson for a second-half candidate with a much more shootout-style schedule, with some weak passer defenses, and we love nothing more than comeback Russ Wilson. Well, that seems to really benefit David Moore right now. Baldwin looks a little bit banged up. He re-aggravated that groin injury in practice, and Moore really stepped up to take over the bulk as the leading receiver on the team, catches a touchdown. The volume's not high, so it's volatile, it's nerve-wracking, it could disappear on you at any minute, but with more and more shootouts lined up for this second half, Russell Wilson loves this guy for the big play. He caught a 54-yard bomb, and then he catches the game-tying 35-yard touchdown. That just goes to show you how much faith the team has, that Russell Wilson has in this guy to make the plays when they matter the absolute most. He's been a red zone beast all year, and I definitely don't think this is the last we're going to see of him, so he should be much more owned, especially for the wide receiver needy.
All right, Ty Montgomery, 9% owned. Personally, you can keep him. I'm not interested. But sell me on Ty Montgomery here.
There's no need to sell on you too hard. I'm not sprinting out and blowing all my budget or anything like that. This is just kind of to note that he seems to really have taken over the Buck Allen role. That used to be the Buck Allen role. They've completely swapped their backfield out with Gus Edwards now being the Alex Collins and Ty Montgomery. Yeah, the bus. What a beastly day for him too. 111
You called
yards.
that one.
Love the bus.
Home runs yesterday.
Yeah,
even though your team would suck.
Not for myself, but for everybody else. And that's, I guess, how what matters at this point for the business. But Montgomery seems to really have taken over to complement the bus, and they've swapped out the backfield entirely. They have the easiest strength of schedule for running back, so the bus will continue to pummel teams and steamroll them. But when he needs a breather or they need a pass catching down, it's going to be Montgomery. I can definitely see him finding his way in the end zone at least once or twice between now and the end of the season. And just, again, that's a pretty productive role for that backfield. Lamar Jackson liked to dink and dunk a little bit there. And I was just actually shocked. This has nothing to do with his waiver wire ad, but Montgomery, he's fucking jacked. I never realized it. Maybe it's the purple.
Yeah, who was it that came on
out?
our show that was – it was either this year or last year, but we had a guest, a fantasy wolf, and he was all about Ty Montgomery.
Yeah, I forget who it was.
Do you remember who it was?
It might have been Derek, but I can't remember who it was.
It was
it was Andrew Erickson, that kid.
Erickson, okay.
We put him in the spin cycle. We dominated him on the Wolf segment when you look back at the predictions, but still.
We did, but it's not like his Ty Montgomery pick was like a great pick, but he did reference the size of the guy.
He's fucking humongous. His arms are enormous.
He's like
I was
Eric
shocked
Henry.
by that.
He's like a big dude.
Yeah, he's a really big dude. A smooth pass catcher, obviously, as a converted receiver. So if nothing more, you want to add some bicep size to your team, Ty Montgomery is a great place to start.
Yep. All right, just real quick, we're gonna finish up with with cuffing season, but I just want to ask you a separate, just football question, not really fantasy related. Are the Broncos like sneaky, not as bad as we kind of thought they were?
I really don't think they're bad at all. In fact, if you're making a list of who would worry me as a Patriots fan in the playoffs, the Broncos wouldn't be far away from the Chiefs, Steelers, and maybe they're the next team. We wouldn't have to go there and play, which makes a huge difference.
Right.
Playing in Denver is terrifying. On the road, I'm not so sure they're going to get it done in the playoffs, but ultimately, the pass rush they can generate, the running game with Phillip Lindsay. I mean, that guy has been an absolute steal of a find.
And Keenum's not bad.
Keenum can get the job done. He's not good, but he's good
enough. I
didn't
say he was good. I didn't say he was good. I said he's not bad.
He's not.
He's the best quarterback they've had in there since Peyton Manning, maybe a year or two before they won the Super Bowl.
Right, yeah. He's definitely more serviceable than anything they've had in a long time. So, yeah, I think the Broncos, beat the Steelers, one of the better teams in the league, goes to show you the type of upside they have.
The Chargers, too.
And a lot of their losses have been very close. They've played the Chiefs really hard both times.
Twice.
They're a tough team, and they're going to be a tough team to beat in the playoffs, especially if they make it in and the cold weather hits and all that. But away from home, I think they're much more susceptible. So they don't terrify me. If they somehow get home field advantage, then I'd be terrified. But they don't.
I don't think they're going to go to the playoffs, but I think their next 4 games are like
very winnable.
I'm going to get one of these wrong, but it's like Bengals, Cardinals, Raiders, and
Browns
49ers.
The Browns are on there.
Browns maybe.
I think the Chargers are on there too. I think Chargers and Browns were the two.
Well, they just beat the Chargers. No, they have the Chargers in Week 17.
Right. And maybe the Chargers are resting people, right?
Right. So I'm just saying they could go 4-0 in their next 4. We'll see what happens.
Really, and then they would sneak in most likely.
They'd be 9-6 in Week 17 against the Chargers. That'd be interesting. Interesting. I'm a Broncos fan, so I'm just interested to know what you thought.
Yeah, they're impressing me the way, and even in their losses, they've impressed me too. So.
Now, it is cuffing season. I'm going to give you 2 minutes on the clock, and I want you to tell me everything that I need to know about the potential handcuffs to own if you're going into the playoffs and you have designs on winning a fantasy title. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And this goes for both, your owners of workhorses and just if you don't and you want to stash them upside on your bench, this is the time to do it. We are now officially over with bye weeks. Hallelujah. Thank God. Hell is off the map. And so at this point, there's no need to stash those mediocre Ty Montgomerys after we just raved about his biceps. You don't really need to waste roster space for that. Instead, compile the most upside possible or the most insurance possible for your huge investments, those key players you have, and that's where the handcuff comes in. You got to look first at the situation, the overall offense, the productivity around him. Would this guy step in and be a workhorse in a great system and in a great scheme? And if so, make sure you got those guys. And there's not a ton of them this year. There's not a huge, long list of guys that you got are must-own handcuffs. But this is the time, now that you don't have any bye weeks to fight through, to look for those upside guys that if somebody went down, who would everyone be blowing their entire waiver wire budget or their free agent priority to get? A few that come to mind. One you mentioned right at the drop of the episode, Spencer Ware. Obviously, the Andy Reid system, we've seen Spencer Ware act like an RB1 there before. Big burly guy with good receiving ability. Would be a true 3-down horse if something ever happened to Kareem Hunt. He'd be my first priority handcuff guy to add. After him, it's a little bit shaky, but I actually kind of like Jalen Samuels of the Steelers. If I play Yahoo.
Talked about it. We've been talking about him for a couple weeks.
Exactly, because one, the role for the Steelers is juicy, great offense, and they love to ride a workhorse behind it. But two, he's got that tight end eligibility in Yahoo, so that would be just cheat code stretch run status. It's such an uncertain position to get a Steelers workhorse at tight end. That would be insane. So Jalen Samuels comes in at number 2 on the handcuff radar for me, and then comes, let's say, Malcolm Brown for the Rams because he's looked good on his limited usage. You got a great overall offense that loves, again, the workhorse. You couldn't go wrong with that if something happened to Gurley. And then Latavius Murray, we've seen act as a high-end RB2, low-end RB1 throughout the year when Dalvin Cook's out. And Dalvin Cook does look fully healthy, back to his explosive self, but you can't take his health for granted by any means. So I like all of those guys. And this isn't really a handcuff. I just wanted to plug Rex Burkhead was activated, and anytime I can mention Rex Burkhead's name, you know I'm going to do it. Only 19% owned, and does carry some high touchdown upside if they choose to rest, let's say, James White and Sony Michel and get them packaged up for the playoffs. I can see Burkhead having some sneaky late touchdown upside down the stretch here.
You're, as a Patriots fan and as a fantasy fan, you're impressed with Sony Michel, right?
Absolutely.
Did you see his body bend in a way that a body shouldn't bend in that game?
Terrified.
I almost cried.
Yeah, I thought that was it for him. Yep. I thought his season was done.
And of course, I was thinking about my fantasy season when I almost cried.
And you're not a Pats fan, so I know you weren't worried about their prospects. I will say this. So, I like his vision. I think he sees the hole well and hits it and gets the 6-7 yards that he's supposed to. for a first rounder, I mean, you're talking guys typically like Gurley and you know, all these other guys, Melvin Gordon, these true workhorse stalwarts in the league. I don't see that from Sony Michel. So I'm not, if I could go back and say, is what he's doing replaceable in round 4 for, what if Gus Edwards was there? I just think their blocking has been so impressive that I could see somebody like Gus Edwards coming in and rumbling, maybe not at quite the level of Sony Michel, but not far off either. I don't think what he's doing needed to be a first round investment. Still, as a Patriots fan, like at this point, that's, you know, can't cry over, whatever. That's in the past. So, do I like what he's doing for us? Do I think he's a talented guy? Absolutely. And as a fantasy fan, I'd be very happy to own him. But I still don't think I would ever say I wish they took the first rounder and spent it on him, seeing the defensive woes we have.
Well, I mean, you spent your other one on, like, what's that guy, Isaiah Wynn or whatever his name is?
Unfortunately, didn't get anything out of him either.
I'd rather have Michelle than him.
That's true. I can't argue that one.
All right, you got any social media you want to plug?
As always, you can find me personally at Roto Street Wolf. If you have any player questions, hit starts, all that good stuff. And then follow us on all our channels. Facebook, Roto Street Journal is the main one I would follow. We got all our sit start shows, our waiver ranking show tomorrow. Not a waiver ranking, our regular ranking rundown where I let you in and see how I'm ranking everybody. Great show, great interaction on it so far. Love all the Wolves that return for that each and every week. Roto Street Journal on Instagram, Roto ST Journal on Twitter. And of course, this is the Fantasy Full Bag Dive. If you like what you heard, if you want these lead blocks for these last 4 weeks, almost there, and we will continue to steamroll you to your fantasy championship, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you review and let us know your thoughts. It means the world to us to hear from you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and best of luck moving forward if you have anyone tonight or in week 13, getting into those playoffs, baby.
My name's Not the Truth Jones.
And I'm the Wolf. See you guys.
Later. All right, man. Shoot me a description. I'll post this thing in like the next hour or so.
Awesome. Sounds great. Much appreciated. Sorry to be a little late today.
It happens. Yeah, it's okay.
Thanks, man.
Later.